our Illinois Icon Insight session, just in the interest of time. Yeah, it's 9 o'clock. So, quick navigating tip is to click on the center of the presentation or on the center screen, and you're going to get a pop-up that allows you to zoom in directly into the presentation. The PowerPoint, anytime you want to get out of it, just to look around the room, you're just going to click to the left or the right of the actual presentation. So again, if you're going to click on the PowerPoint, you will get that zoom in button. Reminder, the chat feature is at the top now, and then the mute button is on the bottom. If your mute little microphone on the left is blue, it means you've got a hot mic, and we'd love for you to mute that. If it's white with a line through it, it means it's muted, which is helpful to avoid any background noise of babies barking and dogs crying. So, but feel free to unmute and ask questions, and use the chat box in order to ask questions. We'll monitor that as we go through. We have staff here and myself. So I'm Steve Reddick, the managing broker for eXp Illinois, as you all know. And our Icon Insights program is, our top producing agents are Icon agents, and it's really unique at this company that they love to give back, and they love to share, and they love to teach, and it's really just encouraging. And I love the aspect of this company that all of our agents collaborate, share, and you have this opportunity to come in here, listen to a top producer telling you what's working for her and her market, or anyone. We've gotten some awesome golden nuggets to these sessions in the past almost like year and a half that we've been running this. So today we have Kati Spaniak. Kati Spaniak is a team lead, top producing agent in both Illinois and I believe in Florida now too, and has expanded her business out in other states. And she's also a member of our Illinois State Agent Advisory Council. So we're really grateful that she participates there. And so Kati, welcome. Thank you. Appreciate you being here, and take it away.
All right. Thanks so much, Steve. Thanks everyone for being here. This is great. So I actually did this session a couple weeks ago in person at North Shore Barrington Association of Realtors. And so I am sort of perfecting this a little bit because I think this is a really, really important understanding of what it takes in order to be a great agent, and how you can make who you are work for you rather than feeling inadequate or inferior to other agents who seem to be doing better than you. So we're going to talk about this today. Match your mojo. All right. So I want to talk about something. I want to talk about this idea that, when you look at yourself objectively, does everybody like you? And do you like everyone? I mean, the answer is, and I want you to be interactive in the chat, and if jump in with your questions. I want to make sure that you guys get out of this. I just don't want you to be staring at a blank screen, but I want you to really think about it. Not everyone likes you, and you don't like everyone. And that's just a fact of life, right? Have you ever thought about the reasons that people don't like you? Have you ever thought about why sometimes you can connect with others and why you can't? Or is it just a given? It's just like, they just don't like my personality. Now, what do you guys think? Have you ever really thought about this? Is it just take it or leave it, take me or leave me? Either you like me or you don't. What if you could get everyone to like you and to hire you and to refer you? So what if you could kind of take away that idea, well, these people just don't like me? What if you could understand the specifics about why they don't, quote, like you and why they might not hire you? So what would have to happen in order for everyone to like you? Do you think you have to be somebody that you're not? So, we're going to talk about this today, and I'm going to do some basic information first, but it's all going to tie together at the end. So I want to make sure that, I have to give this basic information first, because once I get to the end, I promise you, it's all going to click. And I don't think that you'll ever look at your real estate selling career the same way again. Truly, truly. Okay. So how do you know when you've made a connection with somebody? All these things happen, right? There's laughing, you're smiling, you have rapport, there's questioning of each other. Do you know when you go into a party and you talk to somebody and you're like, that felt great. Like you felt connected. You feel good. You feel like people like you and you feel free to be yourself. That's when you know that you've made a connection, right? But how do you know that when you feel that connection, that the other person is feeling a connection with you as well? How do you know that? Do you know that? Haven't you been in, like, maybe on a first date or something where you go and you have a date with a person and you're like, wow, that went great. And then the person never calls you again or reaches out or talks to you. You're like, we had such a connection. Well, did you have a connection or did the other person have a connection? What is that about? So how do you know? Sorry. Hold on. How do you know you've made a connection? You feel good. I want you to look at these first words here. You have felt heard. You have enjoyed your conversation. You have heard what you want to hear. You felt like you had a connection. It's all about you. So that's how, when you walk away from somebody, you're feeling, oh, I feel great. I felt great in that conversation. So when you feel like you have made a connection, you may be the only one that is feeling that way. And that's what we're going to talk about. So have you ever been around people where you've laughed, listened, and then walked away thinking, I don't like that person? Have you ever faked it? Has somebody ever like been talking to you and they seem like they're enjoying themselves, but you walk away and you're like, that was really bad. You know, I had that happen with my hairdresser a couple of weeks ago, and I was sitting there and she kept talking and talking and talking. And I thought, you know what? I just don't even like you. This has been years I've been going to her. And I made that realization, but she has no idea because she felt comfortable with me because I let her talk. She had no awareness of how she was making me feel. Have you ever thought that maybe that's how people feel around you? And I say this in the most loving way and in a way that the only, selling real estate, I believe, has made me a better person. And the reason I believe that is because you really have to look at yourself. You get rejected many, many times, and you have to take responsibility for a lot of things that go wrong. And if you're not taking responsibility for those things that are going wrong, and you are not admitting what your weaknesses are, it's very hard to get to where I am right now, because all great real estate agents have that ability. Yeah, self-awareness is what you really need. So how do you know when the other person has made a connection? So now you're feeling like I made a connection, but how do you know that they've made a connection? They feel good. They've felt heard. They have enjoyed your conversation. They have heard what they want to hear. They were able to share their experiences. It's all about them. So now I'm giving you a lot of insight into life and communication with regular people. But now what we're going to do is we're going to take it into the sales process and the selling process and how to get your clients and potential clients to make a connection with you, even if you don't like them, because that's not what it's about. So if you want people to feel a connection with you, it needs to be all about them, right? So what if there was an actual science to understanding the different personality profiles and why they connect and click? And some of you may already know this stuff, but I'm going to get a little bit deeper into this. What if you knew what you do during a sales presentation to turn off people? What if you were just so aware of you as a person that when you walk into a room, you're like, that person is not going to like me. I can already tell. What if you knew that? And I can tell you, I know this. I know when I walk into a room and I see the people that are sitting there, I can tell if they're going to like me or not. I absolutely can tell from the moment they start talking. And that's how you can master becoming a great salesperson. So today we're just going to give you that insight, and I'm going to, help you understand how you can click with everyone, or at least understand why you don't. And it all starts with your own awareness of yourself. All right. Love this video.
Okay, so we've established that everyone.
Can you hear that?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, here we go. We're going to watch this.
Everyone is different, right? But here's the cool thing. They are predictably different. We all are. And because of that, we can actually predict how people will act or react in a given situation. Our world is made up of 4 types of people. There's dominant, or the D style, influencing, which is the I style, steady, or the S style, and compliant, the C style. Generally speaking, those are the personality types of the people you interact with every day. And I'll let you in on a little secret. You're one of them. Let's take a look. We've all been waiting on an elevator and seen the girl who presses the button, steps back and looks at the button again, then presses it again, and again and again. Yeah, that's a D style. She has places to go and people to see. She's probably always in a hurry, so then she'll tap and hold the button, frustrated, thinking she can actually make it move faster. D styles are dominant, direct, and results-driven people who want to control their environment and then do something to make a difference in their world. Now, let's take a look at the I style. She is Talky Talkerton. Once the doors open to the elevator, she's the one who turns around and starts talking to nobody in particular about pretty much anything. She's an influencer. When the elevator stops, she's the jokester who quips, "Third floor, lingerie, enjoy your day." Now, not all I styles are cheesy people who tell mom jokes all the time, but you see what I mean. I's draw energy from people and love to engage. Now, here comes little Miss C style. She's the quiet one. She's kind of off to the side, standing in the front of the elevator, looking at the plaque that reads, "Maximum weight, 2,500 pounds." She's calculating body weight. Uh-oh, if one more person gets on, we're gonna go down. She's on a schedule, but she's allowed herself plenty of time. She's compliant, she knows the rules, obeys the rules, and wants everyone else to do the same. Look at her, how cute. Enter the S personality. She's stable, steady, and keenly aware of her surroundings. She wants everyone to be happy, and she thinks it's her job to make it so. She's the one holding the elevator door open to make sure everyone who wants to get on can do so at their leisure. Meanwhile, Miss D's in the back huffing and puffing about needing to get to her meeting. The S will even take the stairs if there's not enough room for Miss I, who keeps everyone waiting while she finishes her mocha latte frappuccino thing. Harmony and steadiness are a big deal to the S. As a leader, it's important to know these DISC styles so you can begin to better understand the people around you. It's also important to understand that we are all a blend of these styles. Sure, we can adapt those blends based on our environment or when a specific situation calls for one style over the other. But more often than not, we've all got to accept our DISC and learn to live, work, and play and accept these basic truths. So there you have it. We're all different, but we are predictably different.
Yeah, all right, cool.
All right. So now I'm going to ask you to put into the chat, what is your most dominant one? What do you think based on that you just saw? Are you a D, an I, an S, or a C? There is no right, there is no wrong. And as she said, we're all a combination of these things. So yeah, we've got I's, S's, D, for better or worse. I'll talk about that. Dominant. All right. So the DISC profile, and I know many of you have done the DISC profile. I'm going to look at it differently because how I'm going to look at it is how you lead generate based off your DISC style. And if I had just written that in the title of it, I don't know if it would have been as interesting. However, this is incredibly, incredibly important to understand what you are and assessing your clients when you go into a listing presentation or you meet them for the first time. So DISC, there's nothing wrong with you if you have any of these four traits, okay? And everybody does have these four traits. You usually have two that are dominant, okay? So there's nothing right or wrong. This is how you basically respond to challenges and how you influence others. Also, what's really, really important is your preferred pace. Like how fast do you move? And we'll really get into that. So this is a tool for dialogue and it's not diagnosis in any way whatsoever. Okay, so we're just gonna show you mine, okay? Now, shocker, I'm a high D, which, I'm gonna talk probably quite a bit about high Ds because I'm going to say the most difficult. And I can say that being an incredibly high D. So what you have here is you have the four letters, D, I, S, and C. And so on the right, and this was a chart I did from I'd say about 2 years ago. So you have on the right your natural style, and your natural style is like when you get upset, or you're not thinking about how you were responding to people. Okay, so this is, if I'm angry, if I'm upset, if I'm frustrated, my high D is going to come out at 100%. Now, the left side is your adapted side. So your left side is what you can do in a situation that you need to adjust your personality a little bit. So this gets different over time and how you adjust to other people. Now, high Ds are, I'm going to say, the most difficult people. And the reason why I really think they're the most difficult is because nobody D's are the ones who push everyone away because they're so dominant and driving. And D's always have to sort of adapt to everybody else. Okay, so if you are a high D out there, and I can say this because I am, D's are always having to adapt to an I, adapt to an S, or adapt to a C. So now you can see that my I is natural. It's a little higher than my adapted. And then my S and my C are really, really low. Now, I want you to look at this chart. I'm an icon agent. I've sold a lot of real estate. I do not care if I get rejected. It's come over time. If you are a high S or a high C, it's much harder for you to get rejected. So let me just show you this chart as well. This is mine. So I want you to look at this for you guys and where you're at. So are you driving, inspiring, relaxed, or cautious? Up top, what is kind of most important for you? For me, I'm driving, I'm ambitious, I'm pioneering, I'm strong wills. And if you go to the other side, peaceful is super low. And I can tell you right now that peaceful is not necessarily part of my personality. And so you can imagine what happens if I am driving and my client who I'm talking to is relaxed. So how does that make my client feel if I come in full high D and my client is relaxed? And jump in the chat there if you feel like this is starting to make a little bit of sense. The I's, the high I's are people who love and get their energy from other people. Like they love talking. They are usually the ones who were popular in high school because they gravitate towards people. They're always out there and everyone's, drawn to them. You guys know who I'm talking about? Like popular kids in high school are usually a high I. Popular kids in high school are not usually a high C. They're not usually people who are quiet, the accountant types, the engineer types. These are the cautious people. And then the relaxed people under the S, they're nice. They're really nice. And so we're going to talk about how these kind of go in together. Do I have any questions right now? Any questions at all on this yet? Okay. So as I said, you can see the D is driving, the low is unobtrusive. The I is inspiring and the low is incisive. Okay. So now you got to realize, these people are kind of talking a lot. And if you are somebody who has a very low I and you're very a matter of fact, and if you are a low I and you're a salesperson and you go in and somebody's really high I, if you're not moving up this to match, that person may not feel good around you. So steady is really, I always say if I could hire anybody first for my team, it would be a high S. And that's because that person is always trying to please me. That doesn't mean that person is always the best for me though, because with my high D, I can definitely push high S's away. So I have to be very aware when I'm a high D, what these high S's are feeling when they're around me. Especially the same thing with C's as well. They're very, very cautious. And so, my C is very, very low as well. So this is what I really like because, and I'm being totally real and authentic with you guys because I've had to do a lot of self-analysis over the years and recognize that, there've been people who just haven't particularly liked me and to say, okay, well, why haven't they? And so this is how I see myself. Okay. So this is what the DISC profile says. I see myself as pioneering, competitive, positive, assertive, confident, and a winner, right? Well, other people would probably see that as demanding, egotistical, nervy, and aggressive. And it's a fact. I mean, it is just a fact. So unless I can figure out how to communicate better, that's how other people are going to see me. Now, this is in the moderate phase. Now, when I get stressed, this is me. Abrasive, arbitrary, controlling, and opinionated. And I'm very aware of that. Very, very aware of it. So any high Ds out there, it's a tough position to be in because we are the ones that people are, we have the most, what's the word? Abrasive personalities. Everyone else is sort of adapting. You're a high I, you talk a lot, you're nice. High S's want to make everybody happy. And high C's are very, very cautious. So the high Ds, if you're a high D, you really have to be very, very careful because you have to watch how you work with other people. So how do Ds work with Is? Also, if you're an I want you to figure this out as well and think about this. So I want you to put yourself in a position of having to go into a listing presentation, okay? And pretend you're going into a presentation with a high D. So the high D is going to move very, very quick, right? Blunt and direct. They don't care much about rapport. That's a high D. They don't want to talk to you. Now, if you're a high I and you're going into that listing presentation, you're going to want to talk and you're going to want to get to know them. And that high D is not going to want to get to know you. The high D just wants all business. All business wants it to be over. The high I's spend a long time getting to the point. So a high D, is not going to be interested necessarily in a high I. Now you can also reverse this. If you're a high D and you go into an appointment with a high I and you're moving very quick and that high I wants to have a conversation with you about your children, well, you better stop and have a conversation about your children. Okay. So yeah, high I's, they talk a lot. So how do D's work with S's? Move very quick, right? Blunt and direct, don't care much about rapport. But when a high D is around an S, S's want great relationships. They want to avoid confrontation at all costs and they want to keep the peace. They're very slow to change. So you see how the slow to change and the move quick are counterintuitive. Okay, so now if you are a high S and you're your agent, okay, and you go into an appointment with a high D, that high D is moving quick, but you're moving very slow. That high D might not be interested in talking to you anymore because you're moving too slow and they don't think that you're a strong enough agent. If you're a high D and you're going with an S, that S is probably going to feel that you're a little bit abrasive. Am I making sense? Can I get a little bit of feedback? You guys feeling like this? You're understanding it? Yes? Are you guys there? Yes? Okay. Okay, so how do D's work with C's? High D's, again, move quick. High C's are very detail-oriented and take a long time to make a decision and has to know everything before a decision is made. Okay, so now we can talk about, as a high D, for me, I do not supply a lot of data to my clients. Now, if I'm working with a high C, I'm very aware that they're going to want data. And so I have to then provide them data. I'm not just going to ignore what they're saying. I have to adapt to them. And if you are a high C and you're working with a high D, you need to recognize they don't want data. They don't care. They're going to make a decision right then and there. And high Ds are the ones who usually are like, I don't need to interview any more agents. And high Cs are usually the ones who talk themselves out of getting the listing because they overtalk about all the detail. And the high D is like, I don't have time for this. I just want to hire somebody and move on. Okay, so how do I's and S's work together? Okay, so, and then I'm going to talk about the combination of these and what's really strong, what's a little harder, and where you get your leads from. So high I's want to spend more time talking and getting to know you, right? And high S's want a great relationship. So now, this combination, there are many, many people out there who are high I, high S's. And so if you are a high I, high S, and I'm just going to be outright frank and blunt with you, this industry is going to be really hard for you. And the reason why is because you have to flex into a different personality profile than who you are naturally. And remember, that goes into the adaptive. And the reason why is because high S's do not want to get rejected. They avoid confrontation at all costs. And when you have somebody who loves being around people, who you would say is super nice and super sweet and doesn't want to get rejected, it's very hard to take a listing and to have a confrontation with that agent or with that seller. It's very hard. And so high ISs, if this is you, you have to be aware. You have to be aware of who you are, and that if you are with a high D, you have to flex into that D, and it's very uncomfortable. This is why if you are a high D, it's much easier for a high D to flex into an I, an S, or a C. It's very difficult for a high I can sort of flex into a D, but being driven is innate. Like, it's very hard to not be driven, or it's very hard to make yourself be driven if that's not innate in you. High S's and high C's are usually not incredibly dominant and domineering and forceful and making decisions quickly. And so, that's where you need to understand how you relate to the people that you are selling to. And high S's always usually keep everything inside. So that's why I said I like working with S's, but not really. I mean, I do, but I know that I can trample on high S's for sure. So how do I's work with C's? If you're starting to understand this, you're starting to get what I'm saying. You're going to guess, right? So high I's love talking. High C's are very detailed oriented and take a long time to make a decision. So high I's and high C's can kind of be oil and water. Okay, so if you are a high C and you're trying to sell to a D or an I, it could be hard. If you're selling to an S, you're much more like an S. So as far as the traits go, S's and C's are much more similar. So high C is very detail oriented, to take a long time to make a decision. So if you're a high SC and you're going to sell to a high SC, there's a very good chance you're going to get along. There's a very good chance you're going to relate to each other and feel good with each other. Now, keep in mind, if there's a high I or a high D, that throws high SCs out. They don't quite grasp that. So I want to talk for a minute about the styles, and I want to open it up for some questions on this, because I do want to talk about this before we go into the personality. So I think that one of the strongest personalities combinations that you can have as a real estate agent is a high DC. Okay, you saw mine as a high D and low C. But the reason that is because if you have a high DC, you're very driven, right? But C's are perfectionists. So C's are not going to want to make a move until they know they're correct, but they're also driven. If you're a high CS, you're not going to make a move. That D really does push forward. So high DCs, the other are strong. The issue though with a high DC is that they can get stuck because they always want something to be perfect. Have you ever heard that it should just be done? It doesn't need to be perfect. Like that's where they get a little stuck. So DIs are a very common trait, very common personality combination to have, Ds and Is. And those tend to be the most, quote, natural real estate agents. Like when you're looking at people and you're like, gosh, how do those people become such good agents? I don't understand. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. They most likely have some natural DI in them. Okay. Now, this does not mean, again, any personality profile can be good at selling real estate and can sell. You just have to be aware of who you are and the issues. So if you are a high S, okay, if you are a high S, how many high S's do we have out there? How many high S's, high S, high C's out there? The high S's are the hardest ones probably in selling. because high S's go to great lengths not to be rejected. So they really are ones who try very hard to make everybody feel good. And in a sales position, it's very hard. So a high S has to flex into these other positions that are always going to make him or her uncomfortable. And so that's where you have to look. If you're a high S, can you get that adaptive down to understand? Again, none of these are right or wrong. You just need to be aware. And high C's can be very good as well, but they're so detail oriented, almost too detail oriented, over the top with buyers and sellers and giving too much detail. So you need to look at that. All right. Is this making sense to you guys? I need some feedback. Open up your mics. Are you guys still there?
Yes. I wanted to.
Yeah, we're here.
Okay. You have a question? Somebody had a question.
I actually, more than a question, I have a comment. I find myself kind of switching, like depending
Kind
on
of what?
switching, depending on
Yeah.
who is in front of me. I
Yeah.
kind of tend to wait and just see what they're going to say and, their personality, and then kind of adjust to that so that I can manage what I need to say, and get some feedback from them. So is that I'm having a hard time really placing myself in a certain category.
Yeah. So there are tests out there. I know, I think I saw Noah put one in there. There are some tests. I do have a really, really good test that I'm going to give you guys the link for. I'll put it in Workplace. I don't think I have it on me right now. Actually, you know what? If you just give me a second, you have to pay for this one. You do have to pay for this one. But if you are really, really interested, then you should do this. So let me just put this in the chat. Let me see if this works. This is through NASBAR. It's not going to work. Hold on a second. Yeah. So if you go there, you can pay for it. This is going to give you the most amazing disc profile. You can do some free, but they don't give you the full results. So if you're like, this is really interesting to me, I highly, highly recommend that you spend the money, and that's where you get a discount. I highly recommend you spend the money on this to get one done, because we are all a combination of them. We need to understand what our highest is and what our secondary is, and then we need to understand what our low is. So for example, I'm not great at detail. I know I'm not great at detail. And so I own up to that. I am very clear with people that I'm not going to be best suited for detail work. And that's why I have people on my team who are doing my detail work. So you can do free ones online, but like the Tony Robbins one, I think it only gives you like one, maybe. You should do it though, because it gives you a lot of great insight. But you do have to, we all flex into different areas at some point, especially D's. D's definitely have to, otherwise nobody would like us. That's just the way it is. So did that help you or answer that at all?
Yes, definitely. It gives me a little bit of guidance to try to figure it out.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. So any other questions before I go on to this part? Okay. All right. So now we're going to talk about how these personalities enjoy different lead gen activities. So high D's love lead gen that's direct, straight to the point. High I's love where there's more engaging with others. High S's love lead generation that doesn't have confrontation. And high C's, something that is very consistent and precise, something that's trackable. Okay, so let's kind of start. High D's. High D's can do almost any type of lead generation, because they're just going to get it done. It doesn't matter if it's done right, but they're going to get it done. And so I find with high D's, you have to look at what is their other trait that they're good at. Okay, so mine, let's say, is an I. My secondary is a high I. So that is going to make me feel more comfortable engaging with people. Okay, so now high I's love engaging with others. So where would you engage with others as a high I in lead generation? this is where I really feel, yep, networking for sure. So this is where I want you guys to understand, because when I started my first brokerage and then I moved to a competing brokerage, I was doing great in my first brokerage. Okay. I moved to a competing brokerage that was all about for sale by owners and expireds. And all it was you need to cold call, you need to call expireds, you need to call them, you need to do this, everything was like detail oriented. Okay. And which as a high D, I can flex into anything. I can do anything, but did I enjoy it? No, I absolutely hated it. I hated it. But I thought that was the only way of doing lead gen, because that's what all of the other agents were saying. Oh, this is what you need to do. You need to do this. And what I discounted was what had brought me to the table, what had given me so much business. And that was networking and open houses. But I tried to change what was working for me because I heard everybody else was doing it better. And as agents, what we're always doing is we're always trying to see what else somebody else is doing. And then you're just going to go and buy a lead or pay for whatever this other person is doing without looking at what works for you. So I've done this many times. I've spent millions of dollars in lead generation, and I've tried everything. I've tried everything. And finally, I was spending so much money on all this lead gen stuff, and I finally stopped everything. And I said, I am going to go back to what brought me the success, which was just grassroots marketing, because I'm really, really good at marketing and I enjoyed talking to people. And that's what I did. Okay. I stopped saying I needed it for sale by owners or expireds. I stopped because it wasn't enjoyable for me. So high eyes, they're not necessarily going to enjoy the detailed work. So if you're running a team and you have agents on your team and they're a high eye and you demand that they sit down and make 50 calls, they will fail. They just will fail. And if you are a high eye and you're upset at yourself because you cannot sit down and make 50 calls, it's because you hate doing it. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's recognizing that you hate it and saying there are so many different ways you can lead generate. So high S's hate lead generation that has any type of confrontation. So expireds are for sale by owners. If you have a high IS and if you are a high IS and you're like, I need to do these for sale by owners and I need to do these expireds, you're going to hate it. Is this making sense now? So high C's want lead generation that's very consistent and precise. So who do we think is really good at for sale by owners and expireds? C's. C's are really good. And if you have D in you, again, that is a very, very powerful, powerful tool. Now, again, D's can kind of flex into anything, but C's cannot flex into open houses. So if you are a C and you're like, I just can't get anybody at open houses, it's because that's who you are. It's because you can't communicate the same way that a high I is going to communicate with somebody, unless you're flexing into that and you know that. So I don't want you to feel bad about the things that you can't do well or you're not doing well or judge yourself compared to other people. It all is based upon who you are. So I want you to own yourself and own your strengths and recognize your weaknesses. That's all this is about, and be okay. So when you're a high D, if you're a high D, very strong, I found high Ds are usually very strong at listings, usually not good at transactional work. I also want you to look at this if you're hiring anybody, if you're thinking about hiring anyone. So if you get a D and you're putting them in a transaction position job, they will not succeed. Might be too blunt with clients. Yeah, might not spend enough time going over the detail, might not be friendly or nice enough, starts projects independently, can take projects to completion. They usually will get it done. And sometimes they're just not great at systems. So is this resonating with either you or people you work around or your spouses? So high D and I's go hand in hand. So when you're a high I, this is a key. High I's love being buyer's agents. Love, love, love it being a buyer's agent. Loves talking to people. Might hate transactional work. Usually they don't like to be behind the desk. Might be a little bit disorganized. Might talk too much and alienate others around them and wants to have fun. So that's why high I's are really, really great buyer's agents. I will tell you, I hate showing homes. I mean, I hate it. And the reason why, now that you're understanding this, is because I don't have time. I just don't have time. I'm like, oh, come on, people. It's just a toilet. I don't know what else to tell you. Let's go. Let's go. You know, I'm in and out in a house in 5 minutes. High I's, especially a high IS, is like, oh, yeah, okay. I love this house. Let's spend an hour here. They take their time. They move slower. So me as a buyer's agent, I am very aware how off-putting I can be if I'm working with somebody who wants to see a house. If I'm with a high D, it's totally fine. We're in and out together. We totally get it. But if I'm with a high S and I'm showing a home and I want to be in and out, I better take a step back and I better be patient. Okay. So when you're a high S, can be a really good transactional person, can be a really great showing assistant, great peacekeeper on the team, very nice, sweet, kind, compassionate, not always fast to change. So D's can get frustrated with S's, and S's are always frustrated with D's, except they don't always say anything. They keep it inside. The problem with D's is they're always saying it. So hates being rejected and takes things personally. So if this is you, this is a very hard role for you as a real estate agent. Again, it doesn't mean you can't do it. It means that you are going to, in order to be successful, you are going to have to put yourself out of your comfort zone to get rejected, because you can't be a good real estate agent unless you've been rejected over and over and over again. I truly, truly believe that. Sold hundreds of homes. I work with thousands of clients. I've written, I can't even tell you, thousands of offers that have not gone through or contracts that have failed. How many listings, how many sellers have said no to me? How many buyers have not chosen me? Literally thousands. And in order to be that great agent, you have to become somebody who can be rejected. And that's why high S's have a very hard time, because they don't like to be rejected. Is this resonating? They can really struggle, but keep in mind, high S's, high I's are great buyer's agents. If you're a high SI and you hate listings, that's probably why. Listings are much, much more direct and intense. So when you're a high C, you're excellent at transactional work. You want to learn everything before you take a project. Might move a little slow. Many times don't believe there's another way to do something. Can be very put off by high I's and D's. High C's usually get really frustrated with high D's and high I's. Very, very frustrated. And you're going to find these people being more like accountants, engineers, people like that, very, very detail oriented. But high SC can be a very good transaction person. And like I said, a high C with a high D can be very powerful, or it can be very detrimental. So when you meet with clients, you want to note the little details about them. Okay. Are they super friendly? If they are, just type in the chat. What do you think they are? Are they super friendly? Are they quick and to the point? Super, super friendly. What is that? Yeah, that's an I. Quick and to the point. What's that? Yep, D. Nice, sweet, move slow. What do you guys think that is? S. Yep, definitely an S. Asks a lot of questions. So you can tell this the first moment that you talk to these people, whether they're calling you on the phone, whether it's in your emails to them, or when you go for a listing appointment. You're going to take a note and you're going to say, okay, this person is super friendly and talking a lot. So most likely that's an I, which means I need to make sure that I'm engaging with them. What is their occupation? Are they in finance? They're usually a C, or an accountant. They're usually a C. Are they salespeople? If they're salespeople, they're usually Ds. Do they pay attention to detail? Are they looking for a lot of detail, or do they want no detail? And how quickly do they show you around the house at your listing appointment? Are they moving fast? Are they telling you every single thing about the house? Do they want to lead the listing presentation, or do they want you to lead the listing presentation? Or are they like, oh, I don't know, we're just talking to a few people. Yeah, it's going to be whoever I like to go with. Well, whoever I feel comfortable with is who I'm going to choose. That's going to be most likely a high S. If that's a high yes, you better make sure you put on your, I'm a super friendly, nice person and you'll love me, non-confrontational listing agent. I mean, that's what you need to do. Okay. Are they slow? Do they have lists of items? They're going to be a C. So then you're going to mirror and match your potential clients. And you want to think about how your personality can affect others. If you are a high I, if you're a high I and you go to a listing appointment and you're there with a high D and you keep talking and talking and talking and talking, how's that D going to feel? They don't like you, right? You know, I say this for my high I's in the room is that, you know, I say this really for everybody, but, you know, especially if you're a DI, it can be a little bit of a struggle, but is that, you know, when you meet somebody, you never walk away from that person saying, wow, that person listened too much. You always usually say, wow, that person talked too much, right? So if you're a high I, you need to be very aware of the people around you. Doesn't mean you can't talk, because if you're at the high I, you guys are going to be talking from here until eternity. I mean, that's a great combination. If you're a high I, that's a high I, that's great. But you might be competing in what you're talking about. But keep that in mind, you know, just what you're feeling, what you think they're feeling. That is actually not right. You can't go there anymore and do that. So that's the whole presentation. I want to open it up for some questions. I want you to open up your mics or put it in the chat. Tell me if you think this has been helpful or if you have specific questions about what I've talked about.
Hi, Katie.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Hey, I'll be honest with you. When I logged on and I saw you started talking about disc profiles, I'm recording this to share with other agents. I almost just walked away and had my coffee because, yeah, disc profiles, I just don't get it. This has been so good. This has been so, I'm so glad I sat down. I finally get it. I finally get it. So thank you.
You are very, very welcome. And that's what I've been saying. You know, this comes after years and years of figuring out what I've been doing wrong. And as a high D, you know, I do alienate a lot of people. Now, at this point in my career, I only alienate the people I'm going to want to alienate. Like, I know when I go hard at some people, it's going to push them away. But that's my choice at this point. You know, or if I make somebody upset, I know that I have. And so, you know, I'm DISC certified as well. That Abelson link is where I got certified for my DISC. I find the DISC profile to be super powerful. And honestly, if you want to shoot me a DM, just because I don't want people logging off because it's about the DISC profile, because everybody's heard that. Not everybody's heard this. How does this help you as a real estate agent? So thank you so much for those comments. I really appreciate it. Anyone else? Comments? Question.
Thank you so much, Katie. This is Violet. It was really, really helpful. I came in thinking I was one, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm between this and that, you know, and that was really interesting.
What do you think you are?
I'm an I and a D.
An I and a D.
Yeah.
Yep. See, and so now when you go into an SC appointment, you're just aware.
Yeah. And I now I understand my frustrations.
Right. Right. And you have to understand, especially if you guys are hiring anyone, I don't know if you're looking to hire people, but I did this wrong for years and years. And I was frustrated with my staff. You know, I was frustrated with my staff because I was expecting them to be more like me. But the problem is if you're a high D, you're not really a great transactional person. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, then they weren't like me. I had to accept them for who they were. So glad that helped.
Correct. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Share the link to the Google PowerPoint. Yes. So you know what, where is that PDF file? Crystal, I sent that to you. Could you pop that, if you're still here, could you pop that in there? And I actually think this is, Crystal, you said you were going to stream this into Workplace, I believe. So we'll make sure the links are in there as well. I loved, much to my husband's dismay, who's downstairs having to listen to me talk about the DISC profile again. Like, I talk about this all the time because I found it to be like the most important, powerful tool that I use in my business, because this is what's going to make you a great agent. It's not about necessarily, you know, how you show a home. It's how you communicate with others that you're working with. So, okay. Unless there are any more questions at all, leave it open.
Yeah, Katie, I totally agree with you on a lot of this as it relates to, I think part of crux of what you're saying, what everyone needs to kind of take away from this is your ability to be adaptable, right? And change to it. And I think, I find myself being, a high I on a D, and, that ability for the influencer I, a lot of actors and actresses are I's as well. And so you got to keep that peace in mind. If you feel you're an I, and this is what I used in my business, is I would go into the listing presentation or buyer presentation and look at it as a performance. All right, hey, I need to go in and adapt because this is a high D client. So, I need to talk less and pick up the pace. Or if this is a C, I need to, or S, I need to slow it down real slow. And I think that's the crux of it. It's just, coming in, assessing what's going on, making sure you're adapting and attempting to mirror their behavior somewhat. It's going to give you a lot more success in any and all situations. It's in life as well, as much as sitting with clients. And so, yeah, definitely get out, do your DISC assessment profile, and look into that and see how you're going to kind of alter the things that you do in those presentations. This has been hugely helpful.
Good. I'm glad. One thing is I've noticed, and this is one thing I think that makes EXP really great. Somebody has their microphone open. Is that in the broker stance? So what I've realized is that someone has their mic open. I'm not sure who. Jennifer, I think. There we are. So what I've realized, and tell me if you think this is right, Steve, is that, brokerages that rely on just like a managing broker, designated managing broker to go out and recruit and review paperwork, those are two totally different profiles. And so if you guys have been at like a traditional brokerage where you have to go rely on your broker for help on how to sell and help on networking, but then you also expect them to be super detail oriented, that'll probably be an issue because, they're two totally different profiles. And so the fact that EXP has Steve, who's a high I, who's definitely more a networker, and he loves getting out there and talking to people, and then the detail oriented staff as well. I mean, that's what makes, I think, EXP so powerful, is we're not just relying on the head of our brokerage in the state to lead us in every single area. And I think that makes us more flexible and more able to work with many different agents. I don't know, Steve, what do you think? Have you ever thought about that?
That's a huge point. And that's a huge deficiency in real estate brokerage management. And we're kind of going off on a tangent, but you see these brokerages that have 50 offices and every office has their own manager, but that manager has to, deal with facilities management, light bulbs, and managing staff, as well as recruiting and signing off on paperwork and contract review and legal. And in and of itself, we do that here. But I think a lot of these brokerages are starting to realize that doesn't work. And they've, in some cases, successful brokerages have to switch to more of a, kind of a tiered management system or shared use. And I think some of them are going to that, to where one manager who is, is a D, is good at recruiting, and another person who's more of a C deals with, coaching and training, and S's are signing off on paperwork and managing staff and compartmentalizing it. The ones that, are advancing themselves, but there's still a lot of brokerages that, even big companies out there that don't do this, and they throw everything into one person's court. And it just baffles me that, hundreds of years later in the real estate industry, and very smart people at the top of these companies haven't figured that piece out. But at EXP we have, because we centralize everything into one space. And you can come into EXP world and, hey, if you'd rather talk to, somebody who is a different personality type, then people know that. Or, we also delegate right away. All right, well, you go here, deal with this, you go here, deal with that. And so this is why EXP in and of itself runs very well. And then in the long run, that attracts the teams that want to, okay, this is a really good mentality from a management standpoint. And this is why big teams are attracted to EXP, because if they model the systems and the way EXP runs their business on a state and national level and incorporate in their teams, and that's kind of the next progression. Obviously, I'm high I and like to talk, right? So that's the next progression, as you get into growing your team, that you're doing this and hiring people that are contrary to your personality, go into certain roles. Buyer's agents, like you said, need to be S's and C's, and listing agents in a team need to be, D's and the like. And that's really the downfall of a lot of teams, that they hire the wrong people, like you said. And so if you're looking to grow a team, you need to do disc testing on anyone before you ever hire them, and see if it matches A, that job description, and B, matches the personality style that you're looking for. And this is huge, valuable information. I've been taking disc tests for 20 years. And it's interesting to see that, in many cases, things change too. If you've taken a disc test 10 years ago, I know I'm this, take it again. I used to take them every 2 years, and over time, as my business and roles and just life changed, your profile can change to a certain degree. I'm not a lot, right? I'm not going from a C to an I, but you can see where things will kind of shift more. For me, I to S shifted more to I and D and high, and it's interesting to watch. So if you haven't taken a disc test in a long time, take another one. Take it every couple years, or go in. And if your entire team hasn't taken one, if you have a team, run a team, this would be a great team exercise. Everyone needs to take a disc test. We're all going to sit around in a room with some coffee and donuts and talk about it. And I think it's a great team building exercise too.
Yep, absolutely. So, well, thank you, everybody. I hope you liked it. You can always reach out to me in Workplace. Guess that's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie, so much. Appreciate you stopping in, Illinois.